emphasize, I don't know what that really means, because I don't really believe the average chassid of the seer was studying Kabbalah. Perhaps it meant the elite chassidim would study texts of chassidut that was heavily Lurianic. One of the other students who joined the Yira Kadosh was a Jew who was very popular amongst the Maskilim. A lot of very positive things have been written about Simcha Bunim of Shishcha by the so-called Jewish Enlightenment, because they found in him somewhat of a kindred spirit. He was of a German family. His mother supposedly spoke German, raised him in the house speaking German to him. He was, I don't know if it was completely self-educated in terms of the secular culture, but he was educated. He knew. He was a pharmacist at one point. He was a businessman who would frequent the fairs in Leipzig and had many associates and friends who were enlightened. He was very comfortable in their circles. He was able to... Now, the stories that are told by his Hasidim are all about him saving people from, leaving Judaism. But the Maskilim liked the fact that he was half one of theirs. One of the stories they tell is that when he got old, as if he couldn't, be as successful in business, he decided he'd become a Rabbi. In his retirement, he said, "What else am I going to do now? I'll be a Rabbi. I'll make a few dollars as a Rabbi." Which wasn't really the case. Thank you. Oh, this is good. Need a refill, but this is fine. And Simcha Bunim, everybody kind of gives this idea of the man of truth, or the person who strove for the truth, to his greatest disciple, the Kutzker, who became the Rebbe after him. But the truth is, it was already Reb Simcha Bunim. He may not have been as sharp verbally. The Kutzker had an acid tongue. They actually say, not only just to his followers, even to his, and especially to those who were considered greater than him. The Kutzker used to laugh at the concept of Gadol Hadar. So there's no such thing. He just didn't buy into this. He didn't believe there was anybody great. When he first came to Lublin, he was actually for a time at the Sears before he became a chassid, first of the Yid and then the Simcha Bunim. He had went to buy a knife, I guess an expensive knife for whatever reason. Maybe he was, I'm just guessing that he was maybe learning Shkita perhaps, I don't know, but he bought a knife. This is the story. And he wasn't holding it in his hand, but he had put it away somewhere. So he comes in to see the seer, and the seer says, "So you came to Lublin to buy a knife?" Obviously with no way of knowing that he had bought a knife. So instead of being taken aback and saying, "Wow, you're a seer, you're a prophet, I'm going to be your chassid," he said, "Do you think I came all the way to Lublin for little tricks like that? I didn't come here for that. I came here for something real." In other words, he pretty much insulted the seer, saying, "I'm not impressed with these little kind of, games of tricks of so-called prophecy, whatever, that they do nothing for me. It doesn't do anything for me." So he was known for his sharp wit and cutting away at all pretensions of anything. But that wasn't the Kutzker who really started. He may have brought it to a new height, but it wasn't the Kutzker who started that tradition. It was Reb Simcha Bunim. And what Reb Simcha Bunim did, and I actually just got this book recently, So it's an interesting book. That discusses the life of Reb Simcha Bunim, the life and the thought of Reb Simcha Bunim. It's troubling that the problem I have with Reb Simcha Bunim is simply he never wrote anything. And the stuff that's written in his name is kind of like, for the most part, a step removed. Somebody who heard it from somebody who heard it from him. So it doesn't really have the texture of somebody who can really, feel you're studying his work. But nevertheless, you have like kind of these glimpses of a truly unique individual who was striving to balance the world, who was whole in his brokenness, who challenged the status quo and was punished severely for it, nearly severely excommunicated by the Hasidic establishment. And what you have to know is the Woody Allen movie of the revolutionaries who are trying to throw over the monarchy, the power structure, is inevitably just another despot in disguise. You know what I'm talking about? You know all those movies where all the revolutionaries, yeah, but they're all just another guy wants to run. It's not like they use Marxism or whatever form of propaganda of overthrowing the hierarchy just to put to reinstate themselves. And that's human nature, and that's what the Reb Simcha Bunim was battling against, even within the Hasidic world. That had reasserted itself. That the power structure that the Baal Shem Tov had come to shake up had reasserted itself in another way. Now it used a popular appeal. Before it had an elitist appeal, but there were still leaders of that popular appeal, and so Reb Simcha Bunim and the Meshloach, who was his follower, were at once trying to reassert the values of Talmud Torah into Hasidus, which had been done in some movements, like the Chabad movement was originally known for its Torah study. Some people would argue that it isn't necessarily known for that today, or maybe today it is once again known as having a strong yeshiva system, medium, whatever. I don't want to. If I put it down, I'm only putting myself down, because that's where I studied. So I don't want to it's a decent. It may not be Lakewood, but it's a decent system of learning. I mean, most of the Rosh Yeshivas, and many of them did learn in the top Lithuanian-style yeshivas, and they have that style of learning. They may do a few hours less to make room for Hasidus, to make room once a week to go out and put the tefillin on people, but the same, so they do 10 hours or 12 hours instead of 13 hours or 14 hours, but they're still, they're pretty much, and they may not learn their whole life in Colwell, because they're operating a Chabad house, but the learning is pretty serious. But when it was really serious was in the time of the Alter Rebbe. There were very strict rules. They were in writing of who could be in his cheder, who was allowed in to daven with the Rebbe, you had to know the Talmud. Now, even though there were aspects of Chabad, including with the first Rebbe, that totally emphasized loving another Jew regardless of their level of learning, and even to some extent their observance. It wasn't practiced. The Chabad movement was not what it was today, but some of the teachings that are actualized in today's Chabad house environment were already taught as ideals then, even without their implementation. But so there were other Hasidic groups that knew how to balance the learning of Torah. So they were, in one part, trying to reassert. So the disciples of Reb Simcha Bunim were the greatest Torah scholars, and their disciples, such as Chadusha Harim, the first Ger Rabbi, and his grandson who took after him, the Sfas